Welcome to the Moviegoers Society podcast brought to you by Nerdtropolis. I'm your host, Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis. And joining me once again is my co-host, Drew Munhausen, the professional media and movie mastermind, the latest member of the Xmen.
Yeah, I'm aboard the X Jet right now. I've got, right between Cyclops and Beast, taking a ride, about to go save some mutants. This is terrible. I can't.
Well, okay.
Oh,
well, let's get you a X-Men name. What would be your superhero name? We've done this before too, actually, on a previous podcast, and I couldn't come up with a name. What would be your superhero name?
Oh, you are putting me on the spot. I have Munhausen's a long last name, and there was a joke with some friends years ago. Like the only thing that rhymed with it was like Munhausen. You could say Funhouse, so like the Munhouse Funhouse, and so I'd be the Funhouse. That'd be my X-Men name, the Funhouse.
We'll call you MC Funhouse.
There you go.
There you go. That's your name. Your microphone is your weapon, and somehow some type of audio waves come from it and attacks people. That's what we're gonna do there.
There you go.
But yeah, in this podcast, we dive into the world of cinema, exploring everything from beloved classics to the latest blockbusters. We're on episode 34, which I feel like is us in a time machine. We're going back into time. I feel like, we're going to talk about Roadhouse. There's a new Roadhouse remake, X-Men 97. I'm going to mention right now, there's a Beetlejuice sequel trailer out, so that's another 80s thing, back in time. I know X-Men is 90s, which we grew up with. Ghostbusters is out, and we're going to save that for our future podcast. And so I think it's just weird. It's a weird time. 80s and 90s is coming back this month.
I have to say this, okay? The nostalgia part of my brain, I feel like, is almost desensitized these days. Like there's so many things that are trying to play on your nostalgia. The Beetlejuice trailer worked for me. Like it checked all the boxes. Like my brain was super happy. I was super happy. I'm so excited for that. It looks it actually looked really solid. And Michael Keaton doesn't look like he's aged a day in his undead Beetlejuice makeup. Looked so good.
I mean, can you technically age when you're dead? I guess you can get worse over time, but he's already been the undead of the undead. So yeah, Beetlejuice, check that trailer out on Nerdtropolis. But before we get into all that, because we got a few things we want to talk about, because it's an awesome time of the year. We want to make sure you can connect with us online. You can find me on every single social media platform along with Nerdtropolis. Find me at Sean Taj and find Nerdtropolis at Nerdtropolis. Been on X lately. We got Pinterest, YouTube channel, guys. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like this video, leave a comment. We are growing like crazy. We'll hopefully hit 10,000 subscribers within a month or so. A lot of videos are getting high hits. And don't forget to visit nerdtropolis.com for your daily dose of movie news, reviews, interviews, and trailers. Andrew, where can they find you when you're not contributing to Nerdtropolis?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on all the different social media platforms. Going to try to start posting more on X, formerly known as Twitter. I need to start posting more movie takes there.
That's the place to do it, and that's what I've been doing myself. But also, don't forget to catch up on previous episodes of the Moviegoers Society. Like I said, we're on episode 34. Tune into my podcast, Real Insights, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course, the YouTube channel for Nerdtropolis. I dropped a few gems. Office and Monk fans, Melora Hardin, aka Jan, spoke to her for about 20 minutes or so. On the anniversary of the late Lance Reddick, I posted a intimate interview I did with the director of John Wick, Chad Stahelski. Just kind of remembering Lance. I had to fight back some emotions there. You can tell. Like it was tough for me to kind of reflect back on Lance. And then Ghostbusters fans, Ernie Hudson, about 20 minutes with Ernie Hudson, which was fantastic. Talked about Frozen Empire and just the franchise as a whole. So some really good stuff. We're going to be talking on this episode strictly really Roadhouse and X-Men 97, but stay tuned for that Ghostbusters episode. Hopefully everyone's getting their tickets to watch it this weekend. And just real quick, some really fun releases. The fun job of being the mayor of Nerdtropolis, you get some cool stuff. Rick and Morty season 7 is now out, so definitely pick that up if you're a Rick and Morty fan. I have not seen this yet, but this is a Cartoon Network movie. Craig, Before the Creek, I gotta check this one out. This one looks really cool. And of course, we spoke Beetlejuice, and Jenna Ortega is in that. But right now, you can actually grab a Blu-ray copy of Wednesday season 1. So if you got rid of that Netflix subscription that's been skyrocketing, or you just like collecting, physical media, which I think is very important. It's very cool to see a Netflix show end up on Blu-ray. So this is definitely going to be a pickup to do. So you're a fan of Wednesday.
I am. I actually that show caught me off guard with how much I ended up liking it. I'm a big Jenna Ortega fan. I thought that show was great.
Yeah, and I'm excited that Tim Burton fell in love with her pretty much and has brought her on board for Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Yeah, like I said, that trailer looks really cool. Hopefully, I kind of want to dive into I think that's a classic we got to dive into. I think we need to make a list of classics, and that's one to do as well. But Drew, there is a Roadhouse movie. Patrick Swayze made the original back in the day. I don't know the last time I watched that movie, but I have some scenes in my head that are embedded. And this one stars Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor in his acting debut. And Drew, I have to ask, what you think of just Conor McGregor in this Roadhouse remake that really didn't feel like a Roadhouse remake? It could have been any other movie on the world and retitled to something else, and it would have worked just as well.
Well, first off, I just want to say I know that Roadhouse is like really a cult classic these days. I don't have a lot of nostalgia for the original Roadhouse. So there's nothing that offends me about a Roadhouse remake, although I agree with you about the, what it could have been or what it is. I liked this movie in the first half, especially. To me, the moment that Conor McGregor enters the movie is where I started to withdraw from the movie. I was not a big fan of his. I find Conor McGregor as an athletic presence to be kind of fascinating. Obviously, he's got a persona, a larger than life persona. He's very arrogant, and I don't mean that like in a negative way. Like when you're a UFC fighter, a fighter in general, I feel like that's kind of comes with the package, right? You're very competitive. You have to have a confidence or an arrogance that comes along with that. And essentially in this movie, he's playing a somehow even more over the top version of himself. And Conor McGregor is already almost like a cartoon character in real life. So seeing him in this movie, it just pulled me out of it. I'm not gonna lie, I was not a big fan of Conor McGregor in this movie. I was liking this movie a lot more than I expected to in the first half of it until Conor McGregor showed up.
Man, I felt the opposite. And I've been also hearing the same things from others, similar to your take, that they're not fans of Conor McGregor. I mean, this guy acting for the first time, and he acts and fights for his job. I mean, he's a personality, that is for sure. As a crazy fighter, I thought his role would have been a little bit different in this one. I thought the movie was going to go. I enjoyed it, first of all. I will say that, but it's about an ex UFC fighter, Jake Gyllenhaal, and we didn't get much of that backstory per se. I thought the shots we saw in the trailer of him fighting was like really the beginning of the film. That would have been the beginning of the film of his journey as a UFC fighter, like full on. Something happened, maybe, that really kicked him out. And I thought Conor McGregor was going to actually try to play a version of himself or something like that, where he was also a UFC fighter and somehow they meet up again and have this brawl. I mean, that's what it should have been. They fight in the octagon and they end up fighting in the streets or in the brawl. Like that'd been a cool like transition, right? But that's not what we got. We just got a Jake Gyllenhaal's led film, who I love. I think without Jake, this film would have been nothing. I'm a big fan of his. He's not a lot of stuff. I feel like he isn't the big star that he should be, and sometimes the movies he selects are a little questionable. And
well, he tried to do his movie star, like when he was up and coming and really.
Are you talking about the Prince of Persia, where they should have casted me instead of him?
I am. He was an up and coming star. He did his big blockbuster, and it was under Disney, and did Prince of Persia. And it was obviously not very well received. And then I think he decided to kind of withdraw and start doing more interesting projects. And I think he's a very fascinating and great actor. I'm a huge fan. And then now when he does like a villain role in a Spider-Man movie, he's really good, and he brings something extra to it. I think that he's really good in this movie. I mean, he's in insane shape, and I don't know, he does really well doing like the calm and cool, collected fighter who's like, here to protect this bar that is kind of, has fights breaking out every night. This is not a realistic movie, obviously. I fault Conor McGregor for being a cartoon character. There's a lot of cartoony aspects to this story and movie as a whole, but I don't know. I was vibing with the first half, and I really liked. I could have just had the whole movie being Jake Gyllenhaal in the Roadhouse bar every night, just taking out the trash, the people that start fights, stopping it, being awesome. When it gets more intertwined with like the true crime aspect of it is the stuff I didn't like as much.
I'm with you on that. The true crime stuff took it away. Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal, very charismatic. He brings intensity. He's like calm one time, and then all of a sudden he just kind of snaps, and he has a dark grittiness to him at times, which is really awesome. But I think this movie doesn't take itself very seriously. And I hope that's really what they were going for, because it doesn't. And it's really funny, the director was like, oh, Doug Liman was saying, oh, I thought this could have a theatrical release. After watching this, I don't see how this could have a major theatrical release and do well when Jake Gyllenhaal is your top actor. And really, there's no one else even subpar in this in names. Like, there's no big names attached to it. And it's really leaning on the shoulders of Jake Gyllenhaal and then a first-time Conor McGregor. If they had one more A-list star, I think it would have been beneficial to put it in theaters.
I'm of two minds about it, because I understand where you're coming from. And I was talking to a friend about this movie after watching it, and he was like, yeah, so sounds like it wouldn't have been good to see in a theater. And I was like, I actually would argue I probably would have enjoyed it more in a theater. There's some cool shots at the beginning. Like, the movie opens with a first person perspective in a fist fight, right? So it's like you are in the action. It's like the camera is getting punched and recoiling. And as soon as that started, and it's with Post Malone in this fight, I was kind of like, I'm into this. Like, this is fun off the bat. Let's see where this goes. And seeing that on a big screen, I think would have been pretty fun. I would have been interested to see how this would have done in theaters. I think Jake Gyllenhaal is a draw, but Conor McGregor's a draw. Conor McGregor brings in pay-per-view buys when he headlines a UFC fight. And I think he just signed to do another fight here soon, or just said he's going to do another fight. And here's the thing, kind of talk smack about Conor McGregor earlier, but like, I watched the Conor McGregor fights when he's having a UFC fight. Like, I like the pomp and circumstance of his fights and persona. Like, I think that they are fun to watch. And I do think it would have been interesting if he could have brought out the UFC fans to the theaters, if they would have tuned in for this. Probably not. I mean, maybe, but I would have liked to see what they could have done, especially, we had Dune Part 2 come out a couple weeks ago, but then there was like a week or two of nothing before now Ghostbusters is out. So I would have been interested to see how it could have done if the UFC crowd would have come out to support the movie. I think that in a theater, it would have been more fun. The whole Amazon Prime stuff right now, obviously they bought MGM recently, and this is an MGM movie that I think was in development during, when it was purchased, when MGM was purchased by Amazon Prime. So I feel like Prime Video, I've just been tuning into it a lot more recently. We had Roadhouse, we had Ricky Stenicki a few weeks ago. You and I have talked about a lot of different Amazon Prime movies, and I do think that they're having at least they're having big name stars in their movies, and this felt like it could have been a theatrical release more so than something like Ricky Stenicki.
I don't know. I could see Ricky Stenicki in theaters, but to be honest, this film is it's a rated R film. So maybe rated R films. Rated R films don't really have the great box office success, depending on budget, and what it goes against. You got obviously Ghostbusters come out this weekend, and I don't know. I haven't looked at numbers. We'll talk about another episode, but I think the rated R aspect of which I don't even know how it's rated R. To be honest, I think a couple of scenes could have been cut out to make it PG-13. Would have been better in theaters. But if you release this in theaters as rated R, you would have got just killed with the numbers.
I think the main thing, though, is at the end of the day, Amazon doesn't care. Like, they don't care if this is in theaters or on their streaming service. At the end of the day, they really want this to be on their streaming service. That way they can throw ads at you and that you buy stuff through Amazon.com. Like, that's kind of how I view it. They now have Thursday Night Football where they can throw Amazon ads at you there too. Like, they're making these big moves. They have this big streaming service. They're now charging for, you already pay, an annual fee for your Prime account, and now they want you to pay $2.99 on top of that monthly to have ad-free experience on Prime Video. I think at the end of the day, they just want you to buy things through Amazon. And so if Roadhouse gets put on Prime Video as opposed to being in theaters, I don't think they really care.
No, because they're gonna put that link.
Know.
They're gonna put that link to buy the original Roadhouse movie underneath, and just
exactly.
shipped to you. I think fans of the original will question why there's this one. Like I said, you could call it something else, but there are Easter eggs that you can find throughout that pays respect to the original film. The film doesn't take itself lightly. It has some great brutal fight scenes. I will tell you that. I wish there was more of that. I wish we kind of got more of that underground box fight that like really wasn't part of the plot, and it was kind of a cop out to me that they kind of showed Post Malone in this underground fighting ring, and then all of a sudden like that's the last we see about it. It's not really part of the story, but it's going to entertain you. I think if you're looking for something to watch at home, it's probably one of the better stuff out there to watch at home. And it's Jake Gyllenhaal like really killer mode. Like he is brutal in this, and I think you'd be pleased with this type of genre film. It's a mixture of action, some drama, maybe too much true crime, but there's some humor in there, and just exotic location. We gotta mention that real quick. The exotic location was pretty interesting. I actually want to go to the beach now and relax, off the water on the sands.
Yeah, I liked moving this to the Florida Keys and having, the beachfront view. I liked all of that. I thought the setting was good. There's some other storylines like with this girl at a bookstore that I'm like, what is the point of all this, and adds to the runtime. This movie's a little over 2 hours long, and I don't think it needed to be that long at all. Like you said, there's a lot of things you could have cut out and probably made it shorter and made it more approachable for people of different ages. That being said, I do still think it's mostly fun.
It
mostly fun.
It is pretty fun. Going back to the early 90s, I grew up a big fan of 3 animated shows: Spider-Man, Batman, and the X-Men. Those are my top 3 growing up, and my introduction really to Marvel comics, anything Marvel. Whereas obviously not Batman, but I'm saying Spider-Man, X-Men were. But then I added Batman, so like that's where my love for superheroes came from. Now we have X-Men 97. When that was announced, I was in shock, Drew. I was like, they can do this? Like, is this possible to bring back something from our childhood to its core? So as a child in the 90s, I was super excited about this. I got to screen the first 3 episodes. I don't remember when, just maybe before the major premiere on Disney Plus. I've been catching up on Disney Plus with the original show. There's a lot. I did not expect. I didn't realize how many episodes of X-Men were out there. And to be honest, it's not all fantastic. There's a lot of great episodes, but some of them you're just like, well, let me just skip this one. This is kind of boring. Or it takes you they really dive deep in the original X-Men show. But
I'm looking now. How many episodes were there?
But it's back now, which is exciting. I mean, there's like 5 or 6 seasons, is it not, Drew? It's a lot out there.
There were 5 seasons of the original show between 1992 and 1997, with roughly probably close to 100 episodes, probably a little less than 100 episodes.
Yeah,
I'm trying to do math in my head really quick.
But that's impressive.
67, around 70, a little less than 75 episodes, it looks like.
And that is impressive for an animated show, especially one based on, a Marvel character franchise or whatever you want to call it. So X-Men 97, how many episodes are now on Disney Plus? They dropped 2 or 3 right now.
They've done 2. There are 2 episodes now on Disney Plus.
So I won't go to that 3rd episode, but I will tell you that 3rd episode is really where it gets really interesting. I have not caught up. You do not have to watch the previous show to really get this, which is amazing. They did a great job making this really approachable for new folks. Original fans of the show, you don't have to go back and watch all 75 episodes. You can. I'm on that, but I think I'm on it probably on season 4, and it's getting a little tough to kind of keep engaged because I'm just ready for the new storyline and stuff like that. I didn't really care for a lot of the intergalactic stuff they showed later on in those seasons and introducing some really strange characters. But the cool thing is the voice actors are back, most of them at least. When I was watching this, the intro is back, tweaked, better, I think. Much cooler. Love everything about it. Did you watch both episodes back to back?
I did.
And what was just your first reaction when that intro hits.
Yeah, I love the X-Men theme song. I will say this, I kind of came to superheroes less or later than you did. Like my elementary school experience was more Power Rangers and then Star Wars and then Pokemon. And then I kind of got into Marvel comics and stuff later and revisited the X-Men cartoon and stuff when I got older. So I didn't grow up with it in the same way. That being said, I have seen a lot of episodes of the original X-Men cartoon. And when they announced X-Men 97, I was like, that's pretty cool. But is this just going to be a gimmick? Or, do they have a story to tell? And I'm happy to say they have a story to tell. I know that you've gotten to view a little bit more, but the first episode kind of starts off as more of like a generic episode of an X-Men cartoon until the end. And there's like kind of a cool twist at the end. And I said, okay. And then the second episode really hooked me. So I am truly kind of pleasantly surprised that this got me the way that it did. I really enjoyed these first two episodes and look forward to watching more.
Yeah, I think everyone's gonna love what's coming next. And the great thing about the X-Men show back then, even, it's for kids, but there's a lot of adult elements to it, as in the storytelling and some of the stuff it touches base on, some real world issues that really kids don't pay attention to growing up. And they brought that back too, as well, as you'll see in X-Men 97. Adults are gonna love it a lot. Kids are gonna be like, this is awesome, X-Men.
Mhm.
And I can't believe it took Marvel Studios this long to figure it out. That it's not all about the MCU. We really don't need all this MCU interwinding and etc. And just go back to basics. Just deliver a bunch of Marvel projects. Don't have to connect them. I mean, even though there weren't great films for Fox and stuff like that, but even for Sony, they had their Spider-Man. Sony had their Spider-Man. Fox had their X-Men. They brought in the Daredevil stuff. You had the Fantastic Four. They didn't really connect, but it was more fun to enjoy them. And really, even back then, the standards were pretty low back then, but still, they were really enjoyable to see that. Now they're trying to see how everyone's going to interact with each other, and it can get a little exhausting. But X-Men is awesome because it's a whole team. It's multiple characters. Everyone's back. I mean, you got Cyclops. Let's look behind Drew, his new team that he's a part of. Everyone's looking great. The animation's awesome, and just the voices. I remember, it's just so great to hear that. And I really like that. I don't want to ruin anything, but like the X-Men starts with a loss of a character, and
Right.
so that's also a big deal.
It sets the tone very early on.
Yeah, it does. And you can go, I suggest maybe find the last episodes of that X-Men show to kind of learn more about it. But I'm pretty sure the show will also touch on it if you don't want to go back. And that's what's so great about this. They're like, we're going to jump the shark a little bit and revisit the storyline that it ended kind of dark and kind of ended in, what's going on, and just like refreshing it up and continue the story. And I can't believe that X-Men can start from 92 and obviously it comes to the end of 97. It comes back in 2024. That's how rich these characters are, that you can do that many episodes and then still come back and continue the storyline in 2024. And that's what Marvel and everyone else doing superhero stuff needs to realize, is that don't take so long to bring back things or continue storylines. There's so many, and don't try to create new storylines. The comics are so rich in storylines. Just take what you see in the comics and bring them to life. Yeah, you can tweak things, but there's so much there. Stop getting writers that haven't seen the source material and don't understand the characters to bring in this stuff. I think people are having that issue with the Star Wars series that's coming out, The Acolyte. They said they brought in people that never watched Star Wars in their life to watch The Acolyte. Let's hope that pays off. If it doesn't, there's a reason why that's the case. They brought in writers that never saw Star Wars to write a Star Wars show. There is some controversy with the writer of this X-Men 97 because they fired him, and I don't know why. There's more details to that somewhere. But he took care of the first two seasons. He was a kid like us that grew up with the show, loved it, understood everything about it, and created the show. That's really what you need for all your projects. May it be live action, animated, whatever. That's why I wish they do with Spider-Man. And I mean, even Batman. I think we'll get that in the DCU. I think with James Gunn at large, he's going to find people that grew up with this stuff and understands. Marvel went the different way for a lot of their stuff. People that read the comics late or just picked up a comic book to write the story. They didn't grow up with it. And that's really what we need moving forward for at least Marvel and even Disney, what they're doing with Star Wars. You got to find the people that grew up with the stuff, love it, to create it.
I will say this too. You mentioned the animation. I mean, it really does take you right back to the original series. And I was thinking that this is debuting right as the second half of season 2 of Invincible is now. An episode a week is coming out on Prime Video, and I realize this is probably a really late realization, but the animation of Invincible really kind of imitates the animation of like the original X-Men cartoon series. Of course, it's a very violent version of it, but that's probably why. That show is Invincible is well written. It's a good show. But it probably does spark that kind of nostalgia in the brains of people our age watching it and bring some appeal to it. So when I was watching X-Men 97, I was like, oh yeah, this is the OG of like this kind of superhero animation that something like Invincible is trying to evoke as well. So that was just kind of a thought that came to me. It is very well animated.
Hopefully the success of this will tug at the people at DC Warner Brothers and say, bring back Batman Beyond. Because I feel like Batman Beyond was on par as the X-Men show. It's just how ahead of its time it was. And Batman Beyond, to be honest, even though being DC, I think got a lot of stuff from this show. Just kind of its flair and everything else, and its storytelling and more mature storytelling as well. There is a scene, I'm not sure if this is even episode 3 or 2, I don't know. Jubilee in the nightclub, has that shown up yet?
Yes. I think that's in the first episode, actually.
That's one of my favorite scenes. Just, it's really cool. The way they're dancing in that nightclub is so old school too. And just the way she's using her powers to dance. It reminded me like, Batman Beyond when they're in the nightclubs, the kids are in the nightclubs dancing and stuff like that. Just like the animation styles are really cool. And that really hit nostalgic for me too, is really everything is 90s with this. Obviously everyone has like really the same look. Do you have a favorite X-Men?
Ooh. Well, one of my favorites hasn't really been in the show yet, which is Nightcrawler, but I think he's going to be in it. Does that sound right?
We'll see. We'll see. I will tell you, you're showing me some of my favorites already. I mean, I love everybody, to be honest. It's really hard. I think I was a big Cyclops fan growing up. I don't know if I still have it. Maybe I don't. But I used to have the visor they made for the animated show for Cyclops. So you put it on and you could push a button. That was awesome. I had that. Love Beast. Beast was super cool. Love playing him in the X-Men game for Sega. Can't go wrong with Wolverine. He's one of my favorites. But like Cyclops and Beast were really my faves. Gambit then was cool. I loved like trying to throw playing cards. Everyone's cool. Storm has a cool new haircut. I mean, you got Rogue. Jubilee's back. I mean, Morph is fun. In the original show, Morph has like a crazy storyline. And I forget kind of how it concludes and, they bring him back and stuff like that. But his storyline really starts really early on in the original show. So everyone's really having their time. I was just watching an episode on the original show about Beast, and everyone gets to shine in the original show. And I feel like this time everyone gets to shine, but I think the team shines together. And Cyclops gets to get redeemed. Some of the coolest action shots I saw of Cyclops, I'm not sure which episode it was, but some of his moves are just really cool. And he has elevated a lot.
Something that I think is interesting, and this is not a complaint, this is actually a good thing, I think, is Wolverine has actually been kind of downplayed in these first couple episodes. He's had some cool moments, but considering Wolverine is a big fan favorite character that people love, especially like Hugh Jackman from the live action, they are not making Wolverine like the leader of this team or at the forefront. Like this is very much a Cyclops-led team. More or less, without spoiling anything. And Cyclops has some really cool moments. There's a moment of him basically free falling sky and without a parachute or anything that I was like, this is awesome. It's cool when Cyclops gets a fist pump moment. And so and there's some cool reveals here that I won't mention about the relationship between Jean Grey and Cyclops. That's pretty cool in the show. So yeah, I'm surprised by the characters. I'm intrigued by, and I'm glad that it just seems like they're displaying the team aspect of it in a good, well thought out manner.
Right. And there's still issues with teams. Wolverine still has issues, and with being on the team, it feels like, and just everyone's relationship is back. Like all the issues you saw in the original show are really back. And I mean, they got better obviously and closer, but there's still lot of things to talk about. And yeah, I'm glad kind of Wolverine's not sidelined per se, but he is not the main. Cyclops is kicking butt. And it's not like we haven't had enough Wolverine and we're getting more of it. So like it's time for Cyclops and everyone else to shine until we figure out what's next for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. We're getting the same suit pretty much in Deadpool and Wolverine. And so that'll be the time for that. And we'll get a bunch of variants of Wolverine too. So trust me, guys, like don't complain about Wolverine, but he's in a lot. We're not saying he's not involved heavily. I'm just saying it's great to see Cyclops in this store. I mean, everyone, it's just so fantastic. I honestly rated this a 5 out of 5 stars. I thought this was perfection. Get my PJs, get my favorite cereal, and just sit in front of the TV and enjoy this. I just wish I could have watched more than 3 episodes. And I don't even know how many episodes this season is. And hopefully
I think it's supposed to be 10.
That's pretty good. That's a good start. I would have liked 18. That would just go through it. So yeah, X-Men 97 on Disney Plus, Roadhouse on Prime Video. We're going to talk about Ghostbusters next round and a few other things. There's a lot going on as well. And make sure to stay tuned to this channel, YouTube channels, the Spotify podcast, the Apple podcast, wherever you're listening to us right now. Also going to be dropping some new interviews. Late Night with the Devil, talk to the directors and writers of that film that has been getting so much praise. So that's happening too. And a lot more coming your way. So don't forget to catch up on all our episodes, all our interviews, subscribe, leave a review where you can. So you got Moviegoers Side Podcast, Real Insights with me. Make sure you share everything. We just want to make sure we're growing. We love doing this with everybody. We love the Nerdtropolis community. It's really amazing. And we have a lot more content coming your way. Once again, Drew, where can they find you?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on all the different social media platforms.
Yes, and we got to get more active on Letterboxd real quick. I'm trying to be active on Letterboxd. It's really hard to add that. Maybe I need to get the ad-free version. I think the ads are distracting.
I'm very active on Letterboxd. So Drew Munhausen on Letterboxd. Give me a follow there for sure.
There you go. And he's gonna be more active on X too. I'm super active on X, so I have to get super active on Letterboxd now. So Drew and I will be there in full force. But thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Moviegoers Society. Once again, I'm Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and we will see you at the movies.